The rain came down hard that night, washing the streets in silver streaks. But inside the small apartment, the sound of pounding fists on the door was louder than the storm. "Open the door, Anna." His voice was a deep growl, the kind that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. "You can't hide from me forever." Anna's hands trembled as she pressed her phone against her ear. "It's him again," she whispered to the 911 operator. Please, he's outside. I've called so many times. Please send someone." Her heart pounded. She had counted. This was the 17th call in just 2 weeks. 17 times she'd begged the police for help. 17 times she'd explained how dangerous he was. She could hear the metal chain rattling as he tried to force the door open. Then came a sharp crack. The wood splintered. Anna backed away, eyes darting to the kitchen where the back door was. But it was locked from the outside. She was trapped. The door burst open, and there he stood, soaked, eyes blazing with something that wasn't just anger, but possession. "This ends the night," he hissed. Anna screamed. Before we could know if anyone would come in time, everything went dark. 2 weeks earlier, the apartment had been filled with soft laughter and the smell of fresh coffee. Anna Parker, 32, sat at her small dining table, scrolling through job listings on her laptop. She had left her job at the pharmacy 3 months ago, when she finally decided to leave Mark. It wasn't an easy choice. Walking away never is, but she told herself over and over, better unemployed and alive than employed and dead. Her little sister, Emily, sat across from her, sipping tea. "You're starting to look like yourself again," Emily said with a hopeful smile. Anna managed a small grin. "I'm trying. I want to move on. I want to breathe without looking over my shoulder." That was a plan, until the first text arrived. "You think you can ignore me?" She froze. Emily noticed a change in her face immediately. "Is it him?" Anna swallowed hard and nodded. She had blocked him on every social media account, changed her phone number once, but somehow he always found her. Minutes later, the first phone call came. She didn't pick up. By nightfall, there were 6 more, each one from a different number. The next day, she was walking back from the grocery store when she saw him across the street. Mark, standing there, smiling like nothing had ever happened, like the months of abuse and threats were just a bad dream they'd both forgotten. Anna's steps quickened. "Anna!" His voice carried across the road, light at first, then sharper. "We need to talk." She ran into her building, slammed the door, and went straight for her phone. That was her first call to 911. "Ma'am, has he made any direct threats today?" The dispatcher asked in a flat tone. Yes. He's been calling and texting nonstop. He was outside just now. We'll send a patrol car in the area." They never came. Over the next few days, Mark's presence was like a shadow that refused to disappear. He left flowers on her doorstep with little notes. "You're still mine." He sent voice messages at 3 a.m., his voice low and deliberate. "I know where you are. Don't make me come there." Anna documented everything. Screenshots, voicemails, pictures of flowers. She brought them to the police station herself. The officer at the desk looked tired, like her story was just another in a long line of stories he had heard that day. "You should apply for a restraining order," he said. "I already did. They said it could take up to 3 weeks. He nodded, jotting something down. "In the meantime, keep calling us if he shows up." So she did, call after call, night after night. One evening, Emily came over again, finding Anna sitting on the couch with the curtains drawn. "You haven't eaten all day," Emily said softly, setting down a takeout bag. "I can't eat," Anna murmured. "He called again this morning. Said I won't make it to next month." Emily's face drained of color. "Anna, you can't stay here alone." Anna looked up at her sister, eyes tired but resolute. "If I run again, he'll just follow me. I have to see this through. I have to get that order approved." Emily squeezed her hand. "We'll get there. You just have to make it until then." Neither of them knew just how close the clock was to running out. For days before a court date, Mark began parking outside her building at night. He wouldn't get out of the car. He just sat there, engine idling, his silhouette visible through the curtains. Anna called the police again. "Ma'am, is he trying to enter your property right now?" "No, but—" "We can't do anything unless he's actively trespassing or making a direct threat." She hung up, tears stinging her eyes. How much more proof do they need? The night before it happened, Anna sat on her bed with the restraining order paperwork spread out before her. Emily had called to say she'd come by in the morning to drive her to court. "You're almost there," Emily had said. "One more night. Just one." Anna tried to believe her. She triple-locked the front door, slid the chain into place, and tried to sleep. But outside, somewhere in the shadows, Mark was already planning his final move. And when he made it, no one came in time. The rain was still falling when Detective Laura Briggs arrived at 6:12 a.m. Her partner, Detective Sam Ortega, was already there, standing under the flickering street lamp outside Anna's apartment building. His jacket was soaked, but his face was set in that grim, unreadable expression Laura had learned to read over the years. Something bad had happened, and this one was going to stick with them. "They found her about an hour ago," Sam said quietly as Laura approached. "Neighbor heard a scream last night, but—" He didn't finish. Laura's stomach turned. But no one called until it was too late. Sam's silence was enough of an answer. Inside the apartment, the smell of rain mixed with something metallic and wrong. Two uniformed officers stood by the door, their faces pale. Anna lay on the floor, her dark hair matted to her face, eyes open and staring at nothing. The chain lock hung broken, the door frame splintered. A coffee cup had spilled across the table, the liquid now cold and sticky on the wood. Laura crouched beside her, taking in the bruises on her arms, the defensive cuts on her hands. "This was personal," Laura murmured. Sam nodded. She fought hard. But the guy, he didn't just want to hurt her. He wanted to send a message. The crime scene techs worked quietly, snapping photos, bagging evidence. Laura's eyes fell on the phone, lying a few feet away from Anna's hand. She put on gloves and picked it up. The screen lit up, missed call after missed call from an unknown number. And at the very top, the call log from 11:54 p.m., 911. Laura's jaw tightened. She tried to get help last night. Sam glanced over, and they didn't make it in time. Laura scrolled through the call log. 17 calls to the police department in the last 2 weeks, she said slowly, all to report the same man. While the coroner prepared to move the body, Laura walked over to the small corkboard on the wall. It was covered in notes, dates, times, printouts of text messages, even photos of a man standing across the street. Anna had been died. She knew this was coming. Laura said quietly. She was building a case. She was ready for court today. Sam picked up one of the papers from the table. It was a restraining order form, signed and dated. "Court hearing was this morning," he said, his voice low. She didn't live long enough to see it approved. The neighbor, Mrs. Ruiz, was waiting outside her apartment down the hall. She was in her 70s, her robe tied tightly around her thin frame. Her eyes were red. "I heard him last night," she whispered when Laura approached, "banging on her door, yelling her name. I told her to call the police, and she said she already had. She said they told her to stay inside and wait." Laura clenched her teeth. "Did you see him?" Mrs. Ruiz shook her head. "I didn't open my door. I was scared. But I know his voice. He came around a lot. Sometimes just sat in his car, watching." Back at the precinct later that morning, Laura and Sam pulled Anna's prior police reports. Each one was almost identical. Unwanted contact, threats, property damage. Why wasn't anything done? Sam asked, frustration creeping into his voice. 17 calls, Laura. 17. Laura didn't answer. She was staring at the last report, filed just 2 days ago. In it, Anna had written in neat, careful handwriting. He said, "If I don't see him before court, I won't see anything ever again." It was the kind of statement that should have triggered immediate action. It hadn't. They put out an alert for Mark Daniels, Anna's ex-boyfriend, 34, a history of domestic violence, and currently unemployed. By noon, a patrol car found his abandoned sedan near the edge of town, parked at a rest stop. Inside, there were traces of mud, a half-empty coffee cup, and a phone with the battery removed. Sam stared at the vehicle. He's running. Laura shook her head. Not yet. This isn't running. This is him buying time. Back at the station, Laura began combing through Anna's voicemails. Most were just his voice, sometimes calm, sometimes explosive, always controlling. But the last one, left 2 hours before she died, was different. Anna, his voice said softly, you're not going to need that piece of paper tomorrow. We'll settle this tonight. The room went quiet as the recording ended. The press was already circling. By evening, reporters were outside the station, shoving microphones toward anyone in uniform. Is it true she called for help 17 times before she was killed? One asked. Why wasn't she protected? Another shouted. Sam muttered under his breath. We'd better find him before this turns into a public trial of the department. Laura didn't reply. She was looking at the timeline pinned to board, the gaps in the hours between his appearances, the missing pieces of his movements. Something about it didn't add up. That night, as the rain finally stopped, a new call came in. A man matching Mark Daniels' description had been seen leaving a small motel on the outskirts of town, alone, carrying something wrapped in a black tarp. And just like that, the chase began. The motel sat on the far edge of town, its neon sign buzzing faintly in the damp night air. Laura and Sam pulled up just as a uniformed officer was talking to the night clerk, a wiry man with hollow eyes and yellowed fingers from too many cigarettes. He paid in cash, the clerk said, rubbing the back of his neck. Checked in yesterday afternoon. Checked out maybe an hour ago. Didn't say much, but he had this look, like he'd already decided something. Laura leaned forward. Did you see what he was carrying when he left? The clerk hesitated. Yeah, some kind of bundle. Big, wrapped in a tarp. He was careful with it, like it was, I don't know, fragile. Sam and Laura exchanged a glance. They searched the room. It smelled of stale coffee and damp carpet. On the bedside table was a crumpled fast food bag and an empty whiskey bottle. In the bathroom sink, Laura spotted something. Tiny reddish-brown flecks clinging to the porcelain. Blood. Sam asked. Could be, Laura said, carefully bagging a sample for testing. In the corner of the room was a trash can. Inside, burnt paper ashes, the edges of photographs, and a small, melted piece of plastic. Laura picked it up with tweezers. Looks like part of a phone, she said. Probably hers, Sam muttered. He's destroying anything that could tie him to her last moments. The next morning, the lab confirmed the flecks in the sink were indeed human blood, consistent with Anna's DNA. He cleaned up here after the murder, Laura said in the briefing room, which means he was close enough to drive here right after it happened. He's sticking to familiar territory. But that was also the problem. Mark had grown up in this county. He knew the woods, the back roads, the forgotten trails no patrol car could reach. They brought in Mark's mother for questioning, hoping she might slip up. She sat stiffly in the interrogation room, her arms folded across her chest. My son wouldn't do this, she said, her voice firm but her eyes betraying doubt. Mrs. Daniels. Laura said gently, sliding a photo of Anna across the table. Your son has a history of violence. Restraining orders. Prior arrests. You know this. Her jaw tightened. He told me she was ruining his life, that she was trying to take everything from him. Sam leaned forward. Where would he go if he needed to disappear for a few days? Mrs. Daniels hesitated, then shook her head. I don't know. But Laura noticed her tapping her fingers, a nervous tick, and the way her eyes flickered the corner of the table when she lied. Meanwhile, the pressure from the public was building. News stations were running segments with headlines like 17 calls, no protection, and system failure leads to woman's death. Laura sat at her desk that night, staring at Anna's call log again. She started marking the times on a whiteboard, connecting the calls with known sightings of Mark. That's when she saw it. 3 of the calls were made just minutes after Mark's debit card had been used at a gas station near the old logging road. He's got a hideout up there, Laura realized aloud. That's where he's been coming from. The next morning, they got a break. A hunter reported seeing a man matching Mark's description near an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. Laura and Sam headed out with a small team. The dirt road leading in was muddy, pocked with fresh tire tracks. They moved quietly, weapons drawn, the sound of birds overhead the only noise in the thick stillness. From the tree-line, Laura spotted movement, a shadow slipping into the cabin. They signaled to approach. But just as they reached the porch, the sound of an engine roared to life at the back of the property. A pickup truck burst from the tree line, spraying mud. Mark Daniels was behind the wheel. "Go! Go! Go!" Sam shouted. The chase was on. The pickup tore down the muddy track, fishtailing as Mark pushed it harder than the road could handle. Laura slammed her foot on the accelerator, keeping their SUV just close enough to see the spray of dirt in his wake. "He knows these roads better than we do," Sam warned, gripping the dash as they hit a bump. "I know," Laura said through clenched teeth, "but he's not getting away again." Branches scraped the windshield. The truck swerved sharply onto a narrow trail, one too small for their vehicle. By the time they skidded to a stop, the red taillights had vanished into the trees. They called in the K-9 unit, hoping to pick up his scent. The dogs led them deeper into the woods until they reached a shallow creek. There, the trail went cold. He waded through the water. One of the handlers said, "Smart move," washes away the scent. Laura cursed under her breath. Mark wasn't just dangerous. He was thinking ahead. Back at the station, frustration mounted. Every lead seemed to end the same way. A sighting, a trace, and then nothing. Mark had been spotted at a convenience store the next town over, buying bottled water and beef jerky. By the time patrol units got there, he was gone. Security cameras caught him at a rest area off the interstate. But again, they arrived minutes too late. "He's circling," Sam said during their strategy meeting. "Not running. He's taunting us." Laura nodded grimly. "He wants control. He lost it when Anna left him, and now he's trying to prove he can still pull the strings." The captain called them into his office. "The mayor's breathing down my neck. Media's making us look like fools. Find him and find him fast." It wasn't just pressure anymore. It was a countdown. The longer Mark stayed free, the more dangerous he became. That night, Laura sat alone in her office, staring at the corkboard. Anna's photo was pinned at the center, surrounded by screenshots of text call logs and Mark's mugshot. Her eyes kept going back to one voicemail, left just 2 days before Anna's death. "I see everything you do, Anna. Every move you make. You'll never be rid of me." Laura's mind raced. How was he seeing her? He couldn't have been outside every time. She picked up the phone and called Emily, Anna's sister. "Emily, when Anna moved into her apartment, did she ever mention anything about someone having a key? Maybe the landlord?" Emily hesitated. She said once that she thought someone had been inside. While she was out, things moved around, but she wasn't sure if it was just her imagination. The next morning, Laura had the forensic team go over Anna's apartment again, this time with a focus on surveillance devices. In the corner of the living room, tucked behind a curtain rod, they found it. A tiny black pinhole camera, no bigger than a shirt button. It was still recording. Laura's heart pounded as the techs pulled the footage. Hours upon hours of video appeared on the screen. And there he was, Mark, letting himself in with a key, walking through the apartment like he owned it, sometimes just sitting on the couch, waiting. Sometimes he stood by the door for hours, listening. Sam's fists clenched. He was watching her. That's how he always knew when to call or show up. Laura stared at the screen. And that means someone gave him away in... The landlord's name came up fast. Carl Jensen. Mid-50s. A string of minor charges in the past. Nothing violent. Until now, maybe. They brought him in for questioning. Carl tried to play dumb at first, but when Laura showed him the footage, he broke. "Look, he paid me," Carl admitted, sweating. $500 for a copy of her key. Said he just wanted to talk to her. I didn't know he was gonna... Laura slammed her hand on the table. "You gave him access to her home. You let him terrorize her." Carl lowered his head, but the damage was already done. By the time they left the interrogation room, another call came in. A hiker had found a black tarp buried under leaves near a service road. Inside was something that made Laura's blood run cold. Anna's purse, her phone, and a blood-stained sweatshirt that belonged to Mark. It was the first physical link tying him to the night of the murder. But before the forensics team could get the evidence back to the lab, word came through the radio. Suspect spotted. He's not alone. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. Suspect seen with another individual, possibly male, near the old train depot on West Ridge. Both appear to be loading something into a van. Units en route. Laura felt her pulse spike. If he's got help, he's hard at a corner, she said, throwing the SUV into gear. Sam was already flipping through a mental Rolodex of Mark's associates. Only person I can think of is Jake Nolan, old buddy from high school. Served time for burglary. If it's him, he'll know how to disappear. The train depot was a crumbling relic from another era, its brick walls covered in faded graffiti. The only light came from a flickering street lamp and the headlights of a battered white van parked near the loading dock. By the time Laura and Sam arrived, the van's rear doors were shut and the figures inside had gone still. Laura signaled to the uniforms to flank the other side. She and Sam approached cautiously, weapons drawn. "Police!" Laura called out. "Step out of the vehicle with your hands up." Silence. Then, without warning, the van roared to life. Tires squealed as it shot forward, narrowly missing one of the officers. "Go! Go!" Sam yelled, diving back into the SUV. The chase this time was different. The van was slower than the pickup had been in the woods, but its driver was reckless, blowing through stop signs, swerving into oncoming lanes. At one point, the side door slid open just enough for Laura to see Mark's face, pale in the streetlight. He wasn't panicked. He was smiling. Sam caught it too. "He's playing with us." Laura gritted her teeth. Not for long. They stayed on him for 6 miles before the van abruptly veered into an alley too narrow for the SUV. By the time they looped around, it was gone. At the depot, crime scene techs found tire marks and a few discarded items in the dirt. An empty duffel bag, a crowbar, and a prepaid phone still turned on. Laura bagged the phone and sent it straight to tech. Within an hour, they had the data, calls to just 3 numbers. 2 were throwaways. The third belonged to Jake Nolan. "Let's bring him in," Laura said. Jake was picked up at a gas station 2 towns over. He was sweating bullets before they even got him the room. "I don't know where he is," Jake said the moment he sat down. "He just needed a place to crash a few nights, I swear." Laura slid a photo of Anna across the table. "She's dead, Jake, and you've been helping the man who killed her. That makes you part of this." Jake's eyes darted to the door like he could somehow slip out. He's not going to stop. He kept saying she ruined his life, that he needed to finish what he started. Sam leaned forward. "Where is he, Jake?" Jake's lip trembled. "He's got another place. An old hunting cabin up in Dry Creek. It's off the grid, no phone, no power. You'll never find it unless you know the trail." They had their first real lead. But Dry Creek was deep in the backcountry, one way in, one way out. If Mark spotted them coming, he could vanish again. Laura studied the map, tracing the winding dirt road that led to the cabin. "We'll go in before dawn. Catch him sleeping." Sam gave a tight nod. "And if he's not there, then we keep going," Laura said. "Because if we don't, someone else is going to end up like Anna." The team set out at 4:30 a.m., moving under cover of darkness. As they approached the cabin, the woods were eerily still. Laura motioned for the officers to fan out, keeping low. The cabin was small, single-story, with smoke curling faintly from the chimney. She crept up to the window and peered inside. There he was, Mark Daniels, sitting at the table, flipping through a stack of papers. Laura's stomach dropped. She recognized them immediately. They were the court documents for Anna's restraining order. Before they could move in, Mark looked up, straight at the window, and he smiled. For a moment, the woods seemed to hold its breath. Mark's smile didn't falter. He stood slowly, letting the papers slip from his hands and scatter across the table like fallen leaves. Then, deliberately, he reached down and picked something up from the floor. Laura's heart pounded when she saw the glint of metal. It was a shotgun. "Move. He's armed," she hissed into her radio. In seconds, The quiet forest erupted with shouting and the crunch of boots on frozen earth. But Mark didn't run. Instead, he stepped toward the door, his gaze locked on Laura like he'd been expecting her all along. The door creaked open. "You think you're going to be the hero?" Mark called out, his voice calm, almost amused. Anna thought she was safe, too. And look where that got her. "Drop the weapon, Mark." Laura shouted back, keeping her stance firm. "It's over." But his expression told her it wasn't over, not for him. He stepped onto the porch, the shotgun still at his side. "You've been chasing me like you've got something to prove, but you're too late. You were always too late." Sam came up from the flank, his weapon trained on Mark. "Last chance. Put it down." Mark's eyes darted between them, and for a split second, Laura thought he might actually surrender. Then the woods exploded with sound, 2 sharp cracks. Laura hit the ground, ears ringing. Sam yelled something, but she couldn't hear. When she looked up, Mark was gone. The cabin door swung open in the wind, the shotgun lying abandoned on the porch. "He bolted out the back," one of the officers yelled. They tore through the cabin, following the narrow trail into the woods. It was chaos, shadows shifting between the trees, the pounding of boots, the rasp of breath. But Mark knew these woods, and after 5 minutes of hard pursuit, the trail split. 2 officers went left, 2 went right. Laura and Sam kept straight, following the sound of snapping branches ahead. Then silence. They burst into a clearing and found nothing but a muddy patch where a dirt bike had been parked moments before. Fresh tracks led away toward the ridge. "Damn it!" Sam spat. He had an exit plan. Laura's chest felt tight, not just from the run, but from the weight of failure. They'd been right there. She'd looked him in the eye, and still, he slipped through their fingers. Back at the station, the captain was furious. "We had him surrounded, and he got away? Do you know what the press is going to do with this?" Laura ignored him. She was staring at the evidence table, at the papers they recovered from the cabin. There was more than just a restraining order in that pile. There were photos of Anna, some recent, taken from a distance, and others, older, ones she likely didn't even know existed. Mark had been stalking her long before the breakup, long before she called for help. By evening, new reports came in. A carjacking in a neighboring county. The driver, a woman in her 50s, said the man who took her car told her, "Don't take it personal. I'm just not done yet." The description matched Mark perfectly. Laura's stomach sank. He wasn't just running. He was moving toward something. Or someone. Then the call came that turned the station silent. It was Emily, Anna's sister. Her voice was trembling. "I think he's watching me." Laura gripped the phone tighter. "Emily, listen to me. Are you somewhere safe?" "I'm at my apartment." Emily's voice shook. "I just got home and I swear I saw someone across the street. He was leaning on a car, just staring up at my window. When I looked again, he was gone." Laura was already signaling to Sam. "We're on our way. Lock your doors. Stay away from the windows." She didn't add the part she was thinking. If it's Mark, he's already planned his way in. They raced through the city streets, sirens blaring. Every second felt like a gamble. If Mark had been watching Emily, he could be making his move right now. When they reached her building, 2 patrol cars were already outside, lights flashing. Emily was inside with an officer, pale and trembling. Laura crouched beside her. "You did the right thing calling us. Did you recognize him?" Emily swallowed. "It was him. Same eyes. Same smile. I'll never forget it." A search of the surrounding area turned up nothing. No Mark, no strange car, not even fresh footprints in the soft dirt behind the building. Sam muttered, "He's taunting us again. He wants us on edge." Laura looked at Emily. "Pack a bag. You're not staying here tonight." Emily hesitated. "You think he'll really?" "I think he's unpredictable," Laura said, "and I'm not letting you be next." They moved Emily to a safe house, guarded by 2 officers. But Laura knew the truth. Mark had already proven he could slip past security when he wanted to. Back at the precinct, they combed through new tips. One caught Laura's eye. A security camera had picked up Mark at a hardware store that morning. He bought duct tape, rope, and a hunting knife. Sam swore under his breath. That's a kit for one thing. He's escalating, Laura said, and he's not buying this for random use. He's got a target in mind. The breakthrough came just after midnight. Tech had traced the prepaid phone found at the depot to several calls made to a single number. A burner registered 2 weeks before Anna's death. The owner? A man named Russell Kane, last known to address a cabin 3 miles from where Emily lived. Russell had a rap sheet for weapons charges and assault, and, according to a 2016 arrest record, had once been Mark's cellmate for 6 months. Mark's got backup, Sam said grimly. They moved before dawn, surrounding Russell's cabin. It was a mess inside, beer bottles, dirty dishes, cigarette burns on the furniture. But no Russell. In the back, however, they found something chilling, a wall covered in maps and photos. At the center was Anna's picture. Surrounding it, photos of Emily, shots of her walking to work, shopping, talking to friends. Some taken as recently as 2 days ago. Laura stared at the display. Emily is not just a loose end to him. She's his obsession now. As they were processing the scene, a call came in from the safe house. Emily was gone, according to the officers assigned to her. She had stepped outside just for a minute to get fresh air. They turned their backs for less than 60 seconds, and when they looked again, she wasn't there. No signs of forced entry. No sounds of a struggle. Just gone. An hour later, Laura's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. A single photo. Emily, gagged, her hands bound with rope. Behind her, a shadowy figure that could only be Mark. The caption read, "You had 17 chances. You won't get 18. Laura stared at the photo until her hands went numb. She didn't need a GPS ping to know the clock had started ticking. Mark wanted them to hunt him, and he wanted them to fail. Sam was already pulling traffic camera feeds from the last 30 minutes. If he grabbed her near the safe house, he couldn't have gone far. There are only 2 routes out, both with cameras. Within minutes, they spotted him. Mark driving a dark blue sedan. Emily in the back seat, her head barely visible. They traced the car north toward the Dry Creek woods, the same area where they'd almost caught him before. Laura's voice was hard as steel. "We're going in with everything we've got. No more running." The captain authorized a full tactical unit. A chopper swept ahead, its infrared camera scanning for movement. Just 10 miles from the last sighting, the pilot spotted a heat signature. 2 figures moving into an abandoned ranger station. The convoy rolled in silent, headlights off. The air was thick with the smell of wet pine and the hum of insects. Laura and Sam led the entry team, moving quietly through the trees. The ranger station loomed ahead, its roof sagging, the door hanging crooked on its hinges. Inside, Emily sat tied to a chair, eyes wide with terror. Mark was pacing behind her, a hunting knife glinting in his hand. "Mark!" Laura's voice cut through the silence. "It's over. Let her go." He turned slowly, that same infuriating smile spreading across his face. "Over? No, detective. This is the part where I decide how the story ends." He pressed a knife to Emily's throat. Laura could see his hand trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. "You had your chance with Anna," Mark continued. 17 times she begged for help. 17 times you people did nothing. Now you get to watch it happen all over again. Laura's finger tightened on the trigger. "Put the knife down and step away, or I swear you won't have another breath to waste." For a tense heartbeat, no one moved. Then Mark's smile faltered, just enough for Sam to see his weight shift. In an instant, Sam lunged from the side, knocking Mark's arm away from Emily's throat. The knife clattered to the floor. Mark swung wildly, catching Sam in the shoulder, but Laura was already moving. She tackled him to the ground, wrenching his arms behind him as the team rushed in. "Mark Daniels," Laura panted, snapping the cuffs onto his wrists. "You're under arrest for the murder of Anna Parker and the kidnapping of Emily Parker." Emily was sobbing as Laura cut the ropes from her wrists. She choked out, "I thought I was going to die like Anna." Laura shook her head, her own voice rough. "Not today. Not on my watch." Back at the station, the evidence was overwhelming. DNA, the surveillance footage from Anna's apartment, the recovered murder weapon, and now the kidnapping. At trial, Mark tried to play the victim, claiming Anna had ruined his life, and Emily was just leverage. The jury didn't buy it. They found him guilty on all counts. The judge's words were final: life without parole. Months later, Laura visited Anna's grave. Emily was there too, placing fresh flowers. "She's finally at peace," Emily said softly. Laura nodded, though her mind was heavy. Anna had done everything she was supposed to: call for help, documented the abuse, filed for protection, and still the system had failed her. But Emily was alive, and for Laura, that was something. As they walked away, Laura made herself a promise: no more calls that go unanswered. Not on my watch.